is what do you think the biggest mistake rugby players make when it comes to strength and conditioning?
Do I have to pick one?
Well, you
I think
do top three.
yeah. I could do top 20. The number one kind of is the root of everything, is like going in without a plan. And I think you could say whether that's going into the gym on any given day or starting any given week, or even like in general, looking at what you actually want to achieve from the gym. Like I think we think, oh, I want to be a better rugby player. That's it. But there's so many different ways that you can accomplish being a better rugby player. You can get stronger, you can get more explosive, you can get fitter. You know, you can, like, some people can lose weight, including losing muscle, and that might actually make them a better player. But until you take the time to really think about what it means to you, like, anything works and nothing works all at the same time. So none of the other mistakes, I guess, really matter unless you figuring out what you want to achieve and then what your plan is to achieve it.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something we kind of tried to pivot to be able to help people figure that out for themselves. And like you mentioned men's fitness, you know, earlier, and like a lot of times that's where people get information. And I've seen in the past, they'll show a rugby player's program and you're like, there's no way, either there's no way a rugby player is doing that program, or it's just something that isn't applicable to that, or it's applicable to that rugby player for a certain reason because they've got a long training history. So your average athlete or average amateur rugby player wouldn't be able to follow that program and get the same results. So yeah, it's kind of figuring out what is ideal for them. And like I said, the main thing is the reason they're doing it is to improve their rugby performance. And sometimes that gets lost and they follow, you know, whatever program they've seen on Instagram or whatever. So yeah, great point. Did you have any more you wanted to bring up? I know
I think, no, just along those lines, it's like people don't know where to start because of that lack of a goal almost, like, you know. And so we all do it, right? Like if we don't know what we're supposed, like what we're trying to achieve, we just copy what everyone else is doing. But there's so many different goals, like you said, like when men's fitness share like rugby player stuff, or even like on the YouTubes with the when England posts the gym sessions and stuff, like that's just a tiny snippet. Like you have no idea of the context of what they're trying to achieve by doing it. And it looks cool. And I did it, like, you know, back when I first started. I remember, like, you now look at it, the video now, and it's like the most pixelated video. And there's Byron Kelleher doing like I think he's got like 60 kilos or something. And he's doing pull-ups. I was like, oh, cool. I've got to do weighted pull-ups. And I'm like, why am I following this guy? It doesn't make any sense. But you don't really have anything else to go on. And it's what I found. I don't know if you experience the same. It's very difficult to give because there's so many ways to solve the problem of being a better rugby player. And there's so many different like circumstances that people have with their lives. It's really difficult to give black and white answers because like I say, anything can work or also nothing can work. Yeah. And, you know, I do sometimes struggle, and it feels like, you know, you're being a dick when they're like, oh, you know, do I need to do front squats or back squats? Like I got this question like yesterday. I'm like, that's not a question, really.
Yeah. So yeah, be interested. How would you go about dealing with that? What would you kind of say? This is the question you should be asking.
Jamie, are you asking me if you should do front squats or back squats?
No. We all know it's front. Okay. I guess how you approach dealing with that, because sometimes if you know, people, like say, people want that black and white answer. So how do you kind of reframe it to kind of get the message across that they're sort of...
Like, well, the answer to that question would be like both work, right? It depends on the exact phase and what you want to achieve. Backs, you would give the examples, I guess, of what solutions, I guess, these movements are, right? Or what jobs these tools are good at. And then it's up to the person asking the question to figure out what the solution they need. So like, and every movement, every exercise, and it gets even difficult with like when you're talking about exercises, because a back squat for 20 reps can be very different to a 1 rep max back squat. So, you know, and the more you do this, and I'm sure you experience the same thing, the more skin in the game you get, like you also start, everything, you end up being like completely abstract. And that just, it is difficult because that people listening to that, they don't want that. They want some sort of idea. So I would just say, okay, if you want to, you know, both can work. If you're looking for hypertrophy, both can work. Problems with front squats is you're going to run into is that your core is going to generally fatigue if you're going high reps, and that ends up being a limiting factor. So, do you want is that the goal of your front squat? Probably not. So then we probably want to look at back squat, but then maybe even if you don't technically back squat well, it might even neither could work. Maybe we're looking at a leg press or whatever, And again, it's like the guy just wants a simple answer. Tell me, is it front or back squats? Sorry, dude. Like, it just doesn't. Like, you can't. And like maybe like, and I think this as well. And I'm sure you think this when you're doing like your social media stuff. Like, I could have 100,000 followers by now if I'd have put if my sole aim of my content was to look cool and do sort of funky Joel Seaman-esque exercises or whatever that look different, right? But they ain't helping anyone. And at the end of the day, like I want to look back on my business and the training I do and the relationships I build and like have that all be genuine,
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's interesting that the example you brought was the front squat, back squat, because that is a common one. People or players, I guess, get caught up on the minutiae of exercises when I guess what I'd say to them is, well, why do you want to know what are you trying to get out of it? Because that then dictates which one you use to a certain degree. I mean, like Dan John always used to say, the answer to every S&C question is it depends, isn't it? Like there's so many things going into it. But yeah, if you can relate it back to why you're doing it, that helps you kind of formulate an answer, or helps them formulate an answer, I guess. But yeah, I mean, so we talk about exercise selection. This is one of my bugbears is kind of sport specific exercises and training like that. And most of the athletes we work with, I mean, there's a debate of whether you use them with elite level players, but with our guys, it's sticking to those basics. What's your opinion on that? And you see that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like, again, we're two guys that own businesses that are dealing with gym programs for rugby players. Like, if there were people that you would listen to tell you about the importance of functional rugby specific exercises that would boost your performance, like, we would be telling you that's what to do, right? But we're not. Like, it isn't. It's a fallacy, because you get your specific work of rugby when you're doing your rugby. Like, that definitely does annoy me. And what I found, I don't know if you found this as well, when we had the long breaks for COVID, like, I had so many of my guys, all of them actually, to be honest, come back like so much fitter, because we got time to really develop their energy systems, as opposed to constantly, like, when you're doing rugby and when you're doing even, if it's a Tuesday, Thursday night for training for a team, or any night or any training session, like, a lot of the times that's almost like a test. It's not a training session. Every training session is a test. Like, you're auditioning to start on the weekend. And you go at full intensity. And so you're really pushing yourself. You're not spending your time training. You're not really developing your energy system. You're just working as hard as you can. Whereas that's not the stimulus you need to really develop a strong aerobic system, which supports everything else. And obviously your alactic, ATP, PC system as well. Like, you don't develop that. You just do what you can do. Same thing. Like, you wouldn't just play games of rugby to develop your pass. You would break down different passing drills. So you use your sport as a sport, but then you take a step back and develop either the physical qualities or the skill qualities, like, separately. But yeah, so to answer your question, like, in the gym, do gym stuff, like, and have that gym stuff prepare you better to be on the rugby field. You don't want your gym to look like rugby.
No, definitely. Now, you touched on two really nice things, and it's probably going to be call it the Big Mistakes podcast episode, like, special. You've touched on two that we see there, and one was, like you said, about rugby training actually it kind of turns into a test and maximal. So we tend to see boys just work too hard, like, and you mentioned ATP PC system. You need to be recovered for that, and we had a great guest blog a while back from Ryan Gibney, where he was talking about how people go and do a speed session, and rugby players, we see this a lot with them, they'll turn it into a conditioning session because I can't be resting for 2 minutes, and it's just it turns into endurance. Do you see that? Is that what you're talking about?
Speed, like, the amount of people that want to work on speed but don't actually want to work on speed, like they say they want to work on speed, but they also want to be tired, or they want to do it with like a really heavy sled or whatever it is. Yeah, 100%. Speed's like it's really easy to train, but people miss it so much because they try and make themselves tired, and then it's, you know, anything less than, like, they say 90%, but I'd go even higher, like 95%. Like, I want to be fresh when I'm doing my speed work, because that's, again, you're trying to develop that quality. Do you find it hard when you're in your professional environment to get the time to have guys that are fresh enough to do your speed work?
Yeah, so I mean that's what I'd say in the professional environment. It is the time constraint is the issue. I mean, there's still that, you know, the players would still struggle with having rest, but we just don't have a time. So it's those little bits dripped in when we can get them.
Yeah,
kind of,
because you kind of have to. I see it like you have to be like have like a rest sandwich before and after speed work, right? Like, there's no point blasting. You can't do speed work if you're already going into it tired.
Yeah,
and then you want to give yourself a little bit of time so that you don't end up pulling a hammy or doing something afterwards as well.
Yeah. So like the way I do it is I try and get it into warm ups, some sort of reactive agility, and some acceleration work usually, and then it's with, you know, players who don't make the 23 for match day, then we'll get top ups, you know, around that. But yeah, that's one of the challenges. But that's helped me then work with amateur athletes to realise as well that we can fit in those little bits, and it's kind of educating them when they can do it as well.
Yeah. And a lot of the time, I guess, like, amateur athletes are usually, like, if you're dealing with pros, like, if you name a pro rugby player, probably because they've already got some level of speed to them, like they probably have a decent level of natural ability.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, you get some people on the amateurs that are just slow as shit because they've never learned how to run or sprint. Yeah. And so just doing that for a couple of months, all of a sudden, like, I've had a few guys that have been flankers or been a scrum half, and then they've moved out to the wing. Right. Just because they've got speed, like, into their 30s as well. They've got faster in their 30s. It's like, well, yeah, because you haven't ever trained it, so you're brand new at this.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
But I think, yeah, speed is, man, yeah. I like the non-23 as well, doing it or on the game day. I think that's something I like to use, is if I do have to work it, or if I have to, I think the day before is also quite a nice little opportunity, a window,
yeah,
for a lot of guys, because again, you're trying to leave yourself being fresh, to be fresh for a game.
Yeah.
And so if you're doing that, like that day before is a nice little window where you're already pretty fresh. And if you're doing a speed session, you're not going to cause enough fatigue for it to really affect you the next day, right?
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I haven't thought of that, because I guess mentally as well, it's easier for them to go along with I'll have rest so I'm fresh, because they're thinking about the game as well. So yeah.
Yeah.